big update this. Benjamin Netanyahu, who is currently speaking in Hebrew, by the way, obviously, to the Israeli public. It was just finished talking. I'm getting some of it translated through to me here now, and there are reports coming through that this is a quote apparently from Benjamin Netanyahu. Many signs point that Khamenei is no longer alive.
Wow.
So apparently he's said this. This is being reported now in translation. I don't speak Hebrew, obviously. I couldn't tell you whether or not that's what he said. This is being reported. Many signs point to Khamenei not being alive. That is apparently what Benjamin Netanyahu has said. So there we go. Yeah, it is. But Netanyahu says that many signs that Iran's supreme leader has been eliminated. So
we've disagreed on this panel as to whether we would agree or disagree with the way in which this has happened. But there is no doubt the historical importance of that announcement. If this is true, this is up there with 9/11. This is up there as one of the most significant evenings of the 21st century.
It is, but he has said, obviously, prior to this, on many occasions, that should he ever be killed, he's got, I think he said 102, actually, it was a bizarre number, 102 people lined up to take his place. So that is the concern. Just taking him out won't finish the job. The job has to be finished.
Now, let me tell you something. You know, I would love if he has died, and if somehow there was some sort of peaceful transition into some, government in Iran that was peaceful with the West, and I think it was all hunky-dory. I'll be fine with that, guys. Yeah. Absolutely. But do we think that precedent in the whole of the Middle East, especially with no even boots on the ground, even with boots on the ground, it's been on disaster, that is going to happen? And if that doesn't happen, do we not then think we're creating a bigger threat to us here?
This changes nothing. I wonder if our view is important. When you look around the world, I'm looking now, Australia, Canada, Britain, Switzerland, Germany, France, Iranians are dancing in the streets.
And I don't blame them.
Who are we?
I don't blame them.
Well, and actually as well, in the last few moments, Qatar again has just come out and spoken very strongly against Iran. So you're looking at those Gulf states as well. You know, you've got Dubai, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, where they are united basically against Iran. And then you look at Australia and Canada have come out really quite strongly in favour of the preemptive strikes, if you want to call it that the Americans in Israel did.
Centre-left government similar to this Labour government, I might add.
Yes, and this Labour government hasn't, whereas the Tories and Reform have. So I just want to reiterate, we had those satellite images up for you earlier on. Now, that was what was believed to be Khamenei's compound, which has obviously been destroyed, OK? But the latest is that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli leader, has called for the Iranians to flood the streets and finish the job. He said that today we killed several major leaders involved in Iran's nuclear program. And again, according to reports, Benjamin Netanyahu has said that there are many signs that Khamenei is no longer alive. It's not confirmation, it's not definitive proof, we don't know. This is just what is being reported at the moment. But that is significant. I mean, look, in the next 2 hours that we're on air here, I think we do have to take stock and think about what a seismic moment this is. For all of the talk and all of the lead up over the years, all of those nearly moments that we've had, all the times that it looked like it might be happening, there is a real chance tonight now that we do report on the actual death of the Ayatollah.
Yeah, I think that's hugely significant and for me, very welcome, right? However, Trey makes one good point on this with Khamenei in that Iran's been expecting this moment for a very long time. He was aging himself, but also the revolutionary regime is aging. His internal turmoil, his health is bad, right? So the regime continuity has been on the top of all their minds for a long time, and there are plans in place that would end in either continuity, some military takeover perhaps, or, as the US and Israel want, regime collapse. However, on that, it's I think since the Second World War, no installed leader after an air bombing campaign has ever been more cooperative with its bombers. Right?
So you're right, and this is why John Bolton wrote a very good article in the Telegraph recently where he said that the success of this campaign will hinge on A, whether or not the Iranians do flood the streets, in the words of Netanyahu, and B, whether or not the infrastructure around the regime, so the Revolutionary Guard, the other Ayatollahs, the political elites, do actually turn on the remaining mullahs in the way that we hope they will. That really is the question that we have to ask going forward.
Just latest lines on this. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's daughter-in-law father-in-law and son-in-law have been killed. So that is according to a Tehran City Council member. So that is coming out of Iran. So,
Patrick, can I pick up on this? And that is, I'm surprised to hear this because I would have assumed that they would have known that these attacks were coming at least 24 hours in advance. And I would have thought they would be in the deepest, darkest bunkers somewhere underground. And so the fact that even if we don't have conclusive evidence that Khamenei has been assassinated, if we do have evidence that some of his family members and senior officials have been, that shows that the intelligence coming into Iran was not as good as we thought.
Well, and Lebanon, Hezbollah have, in the last 10 minutes, said that they will not look to escalate the conflict by supporting Iran.
Wow.
So that is Hezbollah that have just...
This is a good point that Will makes, and I think this is quite critical. If it's the case that he was killed, clearly they're not very sophisticated. Therefore, all of this talk about they've got this sophisticated underground nuclear thing and nobody knows it's happening and they've hidden it, it sounds like baloney. It sounds a little bit like what was said about Saddam Hussein, this trumped-up charge of WMDs and it could reach the UK in a matter of minutes. It feels like these things are trumped up in order to justify a regime change. Wait, let me just finish. Well, I don't really think they care about the people. The same thing was promised in Libya. Libya is probably the closest parallel, right? They didn't really put boots on the ground. They were told if you get rid of your leader, everything will be hunky-dory. But it isn't. Libya is split into two, perhaps even three. Some even call it four. And Iran might be the same. So all of these people, rightly, who are celebrating, they might actually wake up one day, 5 years from now, and think they were better off with this regime than what comes after.
You might be right, and it might be a big gamble, but at the same time, as Henry Bolton said earlier, to allow them to develop nuclear weapons that they then move to a place deep underground that we can't access is not a risk that I want them to take. I have children, young ones. I want them to grow up in a world where Iran do not have a nuclear weapon.
I think their sophistication has been over-exaggerated. That's what I'm trying to say. I think all of it has been over-exaggerated, and they didn't have those capabilities.
I think one thing that hasn't been over-exaggerated, though, is the murderous jihadi nature of the regime. And
Sure.
I'll be honest with you. From where I'm sitting, if the world's biggest jihadi is dead, then I am really happy about that.
Yeah.
And there is that. So, Benjamin Netanyahu saying that there are signs that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, has gone. OK, the dictator, there's growing signs that he's gone. That's Netanyahu. He's now calling for the Iranians to take to the streets en masse to topple the regime, to finish the job. He says this is a once-in-a-generation chance to overthrow this regime. Take to the streets en masse, get the job done. It's high time you come together and unite for a historic mission. Those are the words of Benjamin Netanyahu. Shortly, we're going to be taking you to an IDF, Israeli Defense Force spokesperson who we believe is giving a press conference. Can I just bring in now, though, journalist Nicole Lampert for us. Nicole, thank you very much for joining us. What are your views on these breaking news lines that we've got at the moment, which is it appears, according to Benjamin Netanyahu, that the Ayatollah is probably dead?
Well, this has been rumoured for most of the day, and I guess we probably won't find out really for a couple of days unless the Iranian regime is able to prove he's still alive. But I want to come back to one of the points made by one of the people on your show, that this shows that they're not a sophisticated regime, which is obviously not true at all. They have many millions, and one of the reasons why Israel and America did this now was because they were being armed by China and Russia, and they are part of a kind of trinity who are all helping each other. And that's just over the last few weeks. So that's partly why this has happened at this time. And it was a surprise attack. Apparently, it was at 8:30 in the morning, and that was because Khamenei was meeting with some of his key executives. So the rumours have been throughout the day that not just Khamenei had died, but also his defence minister, members of his family, and all of that. So, of course, we don't know what this is going to result in. The best hope is that perhaps, certainly the Iranians that I know and speak to are hoping that Reza Pahlavi, the Crown Prince, is able to fulfill his promise of coming in and restoring stability. But of course, there are many people in Iran who are not fans of his, and it all depends on the IRGC, the Islamic Republic's army, and the army that are just below them. There's about 10 million that are kind of pro-Ayatollah in a country of about 90 million. So we may see much more unrest. but there is a huge majority of people in Iran who feel that the Islamic Republic was imposed upon them. They do not feel part of that. They have their own culture, and certainly the question is, could this lead to Iran breaking up? You know, there is Kurdish elements, and there are different parts of the country, and it may do, and they may create some instability. But essentially, in terms of Iran, as the key funder of Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, was responsible for so much misery in the Middle East. And does this mean this is the end of misery in the Middle East? Of course not. Qatar and Turkey and ISIS are all waiting in the wings. But this takes out a huge power, which has a huge amount of wealth thanks to its oil reserves. And so this can only be a good thing for Israel, for America, for us in the UK, and for the entire world.
Nicole Wilkinson here. I echo those sentiments wholeheartedly. You mentioned China and Russia at the start of that answer, and specifically how they have been supporting Iran for a long time. We haven't discussed China and Russia so far on the show. How do you think they will respond to the actions of the United States?
Well, what's been actually very interesting is that although they have condemned the attacks today, they haven't done anything else. And this is particularly relevant for the Ukraine war, because those drones, and some of those drones that we've seen going into Dubai and Bahrain, they've been used, with great liberty in Ukraine. So this will impact not just the war in the Middle East, but will also have a big impact, the war against the Ukrainians and Russia's ability to fight it.
You've just seen something, haven't you?
Yes, and Nicole, it's really interesting that in his speech, apparently, Netanyahu is calling on the Iranians to seize the opportunity. And this comes after Trump, obviously, in his 8-minute address, urges the Iranians to rise up. Do you think these kind of messages will get through to the Iranians and give them hope that this is the time that they could overturn this disgusting regime?
There's a huge amount of anger there, and that although obviously we saw in January thousands take to the streets and thousands being murdered, and then it kind of went quiet, partly because there was an internet blackout. Then in the last few days, we've had the 40-day anniversary of those murders, and 40 days is a very big time after an Iranian has died, and that has created a new groundswell. So we were seeing in the last few days people going back onto the streets, particularly students. So I think they will, knowing now that they were worried that Trump had said, go on the streets, we will protect you, and they weren't protected.
Yeah.
But now they will feel protected. So I think we probably will see that one of the problems that they have is that they are not armed. The other side is armed. So it depends on whether the IRGC and the other army still continue to turn against their people or not.
Nicole, we're going to go live in literally a minute or two's time to Tel Aviv, but Trey's got a question for you.
So, Nicole, I'm just curious, how optimistic do you think that this is going to end up good for, I guess, the people that are most important in this context, which is the people in Iran? How optimistic are you that they're going to have perhaps, the Shah comes in and everyone sort of lives great? How optimistic are you about that?
I am... Listening to my Iranian friends, they are very optimistic. This is something that they have hoped and dreamt for nearly 50 years. I do worry that there is going to be unrest. I know that there are different groups in Iran and who have very different ideas. So I think if the Crown Prince does return, he's going to require the help of the West to stabilise the country. But I kind of feel that it can't be much worse for them. These are people that have been murdered. 40,000. That's a huge. That's just a ridiculous amount of people. And just women being put imprisoned, raped, and killed for showing too much hair. And the Iranian people, this is not what they want.
Just quickly, Nicole, sorry, before we move on, how do you feel about some of the people that are online today or on the streets of Britain? I won't name this person, but there is a tweet here from, what people might regard as a relatively prominent kind of pro-Iran individual. I'd fully support Pakistan giving Iran a nuke right now. You've also got the likes of Zara Sultana coming out saying under international law, Iran has the right to defend itself from unprovoked and illegal attacks. And whilst we've seen some of the Iranians on the streets, you know, praising this, celebrating this here in Britain. We've also seen signs that some of them are out there, you know, praising the Ayatollah, being supportive of the Iranian regime. What do you think this means for us here in Britain now?
For me, it certainly shows us who is on the, I don't really like to massively use this phrase, but the right side of history. So the people that say that the Stop the War coalition, for example, they are pro-Ayatollah. The Green Party, pro-Ayatollah. So we are seeing what they are. They are anti-Western people, anti-Western organizations within our society. Iran is a huge problem in our society. And as I'm sure you've mentioned, 20 attempted terror attacks just in the last year. So this will make us as a country safer.
Right, Nicole, thank you very much. Great to speak to you. Nicole Lamp